handle them. And yes, Ravindra. Good morning, sir. Morning. I have installed the SAS. One second. One second. One second. Okay. Yes, Ravindra. Hello, sir. Yes, I have installed the SAS successfully. But problem while combining .ss file into CSS. I have tried that you one into notes, but share your screen. I will see. Can you see? Yes, yes, yes. Here is the .acs file. It is present in SAS folder. You have to run from SAS folder. Yes, yes. Yes. You have to run the command in that folder only. You are running somewhere else. You are running your command in JS folder. Open this folder in terminal. Right click and open in terminal. Yes. There you have your file. So, command change to that location. CD. You have to change to that folder, CD SAS. Where is in that directory? Change to the directory. See where your directory file is. In JS, there is a folder called SAS. You have to change into the directory first. CD SAS. Where is your file? There you have to execute now. Yes, yes, sir. Not type here CD SAS directly. CD. That folder name. Where is the folder name? CD space SAS space. Hit enter. Here you have to run the command. You are in the concept of you finished JavaScript, still you are facing problem in changing directory, locating the files. That's very poor. Once at the level of finished JavaScript, you are still having problem in changing directory, locating where your file is there. That means you are not doing practically regular. It's very hard to handle that. Right. At this level, it should not face problem in folders, directories, and all these things. These are all very general things, basic level things. No? Right. So once we are aware of how to deal with the SAS contents, how we can work with the SAS contents and handle them. So we have to learn some more options here. So we need to understand how we can use functions in SAS. We call them as actually mixins. Already I showed you how we can handle an if and else and for and each like options, how to work with them. So mixin is nothing but generally mixin is like a function. Generally in JavaScript we have functions. So mixin is like a function. So that means what you have to do is you have to create a mixin. So that is, and you have to give a name for that, and in that you can have parameters. So and in that you can put some set of functionality. What is advantage of this? You can write some lines of code inside this, and whenever you want, you can access and use it just with the reference of this particular name. And you have to do that by using include. So by using at the net include, and you can give that reference name. You can give that reference name. You have to define that include and specify the reference name. That is generally how we can manage and handle. So usually, so when you are dealing with the functions and configuring the functions, already you know what is purpose of function, no need to explain. Here how to write them, you have to know. So this is very helpful when you are importing from one location to another and you are using them. Just a basic example I will show you here. So that means when you are transporting from one location to another and configuring. So you see, suppose this is here. So here now what we have to do is, so let's go to this CSS and let's write a small logic here. Generally to create a function, we have to just use mixin and the function name, some effects. So let's say size, something. And it can have some parameters if necessary. Suppose I can access the dollar PG color. So and like dollar border. These are some parameters. Now what we have to do, we have to put some effects like container. So background color. It will get the value from PG color. So and you have the border. It will get the value from border variable. These are parameters. You know how to configure the parameters and how to use them. What is advantage of this is reusability. So we can access and use any number of times, any location with different values. No need to explain what is a function, what is a method. That's what you learned in JavaScript. Now you have to just access this. How to access? By using include. Include styles, and it is expecting two parameters. The background color I given as suppose yellow, and the border I defined as 2 pixel solid, some red, like this we define. This is how we configure the parameters. That means you can access this any number of times, anywhere. How to access from various files. I will show you now. We will discuss about that. How we can access and use from various files we will discuss. But the point is, we have to reuse it. So that means if I want some other location and with some different styles, then you can include again. You can include styles and the background color you can keep red and you can say some 4 pixel solid yellow color. So it will write that again. That means you can reuse the functions that you are configuring. Actually, this is like a method. This is like a method. So what is the difference between a method and a function? In the SAS we have a function also. Function. So and we can define function name, parameters and specify. What is difference between a method and a function? What do you say? What is the difference between a method and a function? Difference between a method and a function. What we discussed, the difference between method and function. What do you say? Sleeping, all people. Who is this person? Only start class, stop class, pause class, or something else you will answer. Anything else to talk? Person. Only start class, pause class. Only these things or something about subject also will you speak? What is the difference between a function and a method we learned in JavaScript? Don't again now invent your new definitions. You try to tell what the definition I told you about function and a method. What is difference between a variable and property? What is difference between variable and property? What is difference between a variable and property? What is difference between a function and a method? That is not the point we discussed, right? It belongs to class or it doesn't belong to class. That is not the major point we discussed. The major point we discussed about the function and method and the property and variable. We discussed that variables are immutable and method is mutable, property is mutable. That's what we discussed. And we discussed that function will return a value. Method will not return a value, no return value, not return a value. Functions will return a value. These are the differences we discussed. You have to follow all these notes and contents, whatever we discussed in the class, otherwise you can't handle interviews. So after learning so many days of JavaScript, if you can't even tell these answers, then it is useless of learning this. You have to go through all these notes and content, whatever we discussed in the class. So because these are very basic things. So what is a variable, what is a property, what is a function, and what is a method? Here mixins are like methods, and functions are like functions. That is the difference actually. We have both mixin and a function. Now when I call that, it can execute that and it can generate. I written 2 times actually. So when I compile this now, so let's compile this here. So SAS and the file name is fx.scss and fx.css. And you can see when I compiled it in fx.css and that code is generated here. Code is generated here. You can see 2 times it generated because 2 times you call the function. You can call the function any number of times depending on your requirement. You can call that any number of times and configure any number of times. That is the basic approach of configuring and defining. So these are important about how we can deal with the functions. Mixins. Mixin is nothing but a set of functionality is configured under the name and you can access and you can use it. Already just like methods you have learned. And function is also same. Only the difference is function will return a value. Function will return a value. Mixin will not return. Function will return. How to write a function? We have to use @net function and function name. Any name for the function. Suppose I given as some set margin is the function. And the set margin is the function. And into that function, so we can apply, you can pass some parameter and you can define. Suppose I am creating here some base margin. I am writing some base margin. And so I given left margin. So another variable called left margin. So left margin is some 10 pixels. That is the left margin I given 10 pixels. Now this function have to return base margin to left margin. That means I given base margin as 10 into 10, like that, 100. So I given as 20 into 10, 200, like that. So it should return. We have to use the return statement. It should return dollar base margin into the dollar left margin. You have to perform that operation and return. So this is the purpose of a function. Function will perform a calculation and it will return that particular functionality. You have to define that. That means, for example, I want to give the margin for container. So I need to define the margin for container or specify. For example, I will remove this mixin. Accessing functions and using the function is simple. You don't need to write include. What you can do is, if I am writing container, for a container, I want to write the effects. Here margin for container, margin for container, margin for container. I will give as, I will call set margin function. Into the set margin function, I will keep as 100 or 10. So that means it will return 100, 10 into 10. So margin it will keep in that way. Set margin is 10. And suppose I have a heading. For heading, I want to give 2. Then what we will do is, here I will define as margin. Margin for heading. So we will keep set margin. I will keep 20. That means 200 pixels for heading. 100 pixels because set margin you will pass 10 into it. So base margin is 10. 10 into left margin is already. So 10. You can use any variable name. I just given reasonably some name. This is the purpose. Now what it will do is, according to that function, it will return the functionality. So finally in the CSS file, what it will generate, when we compile the CSS file, in the CSS file it will generate container margin 100, heading margin 200, that it will return. That means, what is the difference between a function and a method? The main difference between a function and a method is to handle the functionality, to configure the functionality, and return a value. Function returns a value. And a mixin will only perform that particular specified functionality. So you write mixins and you write functions. Mixins you have to use include, but function you can directly configure. That's the point. So in SAS, this is all reusability concerns, how we can reuse and manage. And one of the main concept here is importing. How you can import from various files. How we can get information from various files and manage in one location. That's what actually you learned module system in your JavaScript. The module system in JavaScript, the same module system we have to use here. Module system like concept you have to use here. Nothing complicated, just simple. So actually, I showed you yesterday in the Bootstrap. I showed you yesterday in the Bootstrap. Where is this Bootstrap here? Let's go here and configure. The Bootstrap file. Node modules, Bootstrap. This, yeah, SCSS and C. See, Bootstrap have a lot of files like accordion, like alert badge, and all these are imported into one file called Bootstrap SCSS. In this Bootstrap SCSS, you can see all are imported. That is the point. That means generally what we do in the development is we will build separate files for separate purpose. And finally, we will merge everything into one file and we start using it. So here also same. I will do that here. I will delete all these files, effects. Yeah, let's delete all these files first. Okay. I will create a new some new files. In SCSS folder, I am creating some new files. So, and when you are creating separate files which are intended to deploy and use in other locations, import in other location, then you have to give the new name. You have to specify with underscore. It is mandatory that file name must start with underscore. And here I am creating a file called variables.scss. In this variables.scss, I am declaring some variables. I am configuring some variables. Suppose BG color. BG color is yellow. Some variable I am writing here. Similarly, I am writing some water. So some 3 pixel solid, some red color. Like this we have defined. And this is the location where we separately keep all variables. Suppose I given as margin as suppose 20 pixels, 100 pixels margin like this, and the shadow. So it contains 3 pixel, 4 pixel, 3 pixel. So some gray color shadow like this we define. These are all the variables. All variables we kept in one file. Okay, good. Then next, what we are doing here is we are creating another file. I will give as underscore mixins dot scss. I am creating another file called mixins. And in the mixins, I am creating a mixin. I am creating a mixin. And the mixin name, we are defining the mixin name. And what is the mixin name? So setFX. setFX is a function. This setFX, if doesn't require parameter, you can just leave it. If it requires parameter, you have to configure it. And we have to define everything here. That means we need to configure everything here. That means what you can do here is suppose I defined effects for container. Okay, container is the values we have to access from the container and use them. And the values are nothing but directly you can specify background color. It will come from dollar background, so BG color. That is the variable which have the background color, BG color. Okay. Next, we have like border. Border will come from dollar border. We will apply that. And in that we have a heading. For heading, we given as box shadow. Box shadow we have to get from shadow. That is the variable we are having. That is the shadow. And for container, we are giving margin. And margin we are getting from margin, dollar margin. And here also some border. So border, I am using dollar border. Your functions in separate file. Like that you can design everything separate. Now, if I want to use everything in one file, suppose I am writing here. So theme dot theme dot scss. In theme dot scss, I need to apply all of them. Then I have to use all of them. Simple. You have to use @ import. Import, you can directly refer to the file name. File name is variables. That's it. So you have to import variables. And another one, you have to import what some mixins. Remember, only file name. But very important point, if the file name is not defined with underscore, it cannot work. You have to make sure that you kept everything with that underscore. The file name is defined with underscore. It's mandatory for that. So you need to configure it. So import and define it. That's what you have to specify. So this is the basic approach how to configure and define. Now, additionally, you can write logic here, or you can just leave it with imports. That means after importing, you know that mixins contains a function. You have to call the function. You can call the function here itself, or you can call here in the theme. In the theme, you can call the function. You can say include and set effects. That is the function. That set effects is called here. That is the mixin. You have to call that mixin and use it here. That means you can configure in this way. That means the point is, if it is not expecting parameters, you don't need to write this. If it is expecting parameters, then only you have to define. So what is import, what is include? Import is importing the entire file. Include is accessing the mixin from that particular file. Because mixins are having some functions, we are importing them here. And now when I compile this theme file, that means SAS theme.scss and theme.css, theme.css, theme.scss and theme.css. And here I hit enter, then it is compiled successfully. And you can see now, actually theme.css is only 3 lines code. Here we have one empty I given there, 3 lines code we have. But when it goes to theme.css, then it will get all the 10 lines code. That means it will define the effects for all of them. And we have to link that theme file here. That means we have to link theme.css file here. And this theme.css will get all the effects from all files and it can apply. Everything it will get it from there and it will apply. We have to make sure that we have that container and we have headings kept there. Here we don't have any container. I will put a div and class as container. And in that we have heading, some styles, something like this. And we have the other content. And it should get those effects and display. Or whatever you configured, it should display. Now, you want additional functionality to configure. Then you can write anywhere, any specific functionality there. Suppose I said margin. It should get from $margin. And we need to compile that and we can use. And you can see it will set that margin for the heading also. This is the way of reusability. Actually, we have to create separate files. We have to maintain the logic and functions in those files. We can import a file in another file also. That means in this mixin, I am using the variables. Directly, I can import here. So we can import here. Import and we can import variables. We can import variables directly here. So that it can access and use the variables. So that I can use this directly. If you are not importing the variables, these values are not accessible. You can import all at one location and configure them. Or you can import one inside another. Generally, just like how you done your modules in JavaScript, the module system, the same approach we have to follow here. So mixins functions are very much important. So Sass helps you to make your CSS more better. You see all these files that we have in Bootstrap. Open the Bootstrap here. In Bootstrap, you can see alert. Alert contains some logic. And if all these points we discuss, it contains some logic. Similarly, batch contains some logic. It contains some logic. That means they have 10-15 lines code. And everything finally comes at one place. You see, they have a separate folder called mixin. In that mixin, we are importing and they may have some other mixins. You see, separate mixin folder is created. In that mixin folder, separate functions are created. Functions are configured. The same approach we are following. The same approach we are defining. We are configuring and defining. So this is the general concept of handling and interacting with the application. So this is one important point you need to know in Sass. Functions, modules, mixins, importing and using. Reusability is the main option. And remember, this is not mandatory. This is just optional. That means a developer have a choice. You can't force developers to use Sass. Wherever you are creating projects, it will ask you for a choice saying that will you try Sass, will you use Sass, or will you use direct CSS? Your wish. Because as I already told you, this doesn't make any impact on performance. Minification will perfect in performance. This is only developer's choice. And nobody, companies will force you to use it until or unless they already have that library. That's the reason you have to have an idea of how to handle this Sass and work with that. Okay. This is the concept of working with Sass. Why we waited these so many, after CSS generally people learn. But after CSS, if people have to learn Sass again 10 days, they have to spend because they don't know what is variable. They don't know what is data type. They don't know what is a function and a method, how to write function, call functions. And for person who learned JavaScript like language, for him only one day. Just few hours, 1-2 hours of time is enough for learning this SAS, nothing special. That's the reason it is best to handle this after JavaScript, working with that and interacting with it. All the examples I uploaded into the classroom, right? Now next, after this, we have one option. Actually, uh, we will learn jQuery, but we have some other batch people also to come in. So then what we do is we will start Angular. jQuery I will tell you afterwards. So that we will decide tomorrow. I will tell you, because if other people are convenient in attending this batch, then we will mix both of them and start with Angular. Otherwise, we will continue with our jQuery only. Okay, jQuery only. So you have this to learn in full stack. What the requirement of Angular, how much Angular we need for full stack development, that we are going to learn. But that we will once check with the other batch people and we will start it. Okay. So today we will end the session here, and tomorrow I will let you know whether we will start jQuery or with Angular, depending on another batch people. We will check with them. I will check with them today and I will let you know about that, so that we can jQuery you can learn later. After this Angular, we will go with jQuery. If they are available, then we will start Angular tomorrow. Okay, now, right? If you have any doubts, you can ask me now. I'll get back to you. So any doubts? Then tomorrow I will decide whether to start with jQuery or Angular. Okay, right? Yes, Aishwarya.
Sir, I have installed SAS successfully, but I'm not able to compile the files. Can you please check? I'm going to share my screen.
Share your screen.
Sir, is it visible?
You please maximize that window. Now what error is coming there?
The term SAS is not recognized as the name of CMD letter.
You are running in PowerShell. Open command prompt that file. Here, right side, yeah. Now this is the location. Now where is your SAS file? It is in separate SAS folder. That's what I said. Change to that folder. It is in separate SAS folder. In practice, you created a separate folder called SAS,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You have to run from there. That means here currently see in the command terminal. See in the terminal. In the terminal, remove that path that you written.
This one, sir.
Currently, where the path is present, see, it is in practice.
This one. Yes.
But your folder is not practice, right?
Yes. It is in SAS.
SAS. You have to change into it first. CD SAS folder. SASS. No, SASS. You misspelled it. Capitalization doesn't matter.
Okay.
Here you have to run that command. SAS is not installed.
Okay, but we could see all the SAS related files.
These are bootstrap files. But to compile them, you need a compiler. No? You can have file, but compiler is not there. You have to install it. npm install -g SAS. I told you, right?
Yes, sir. Sir, do you able to see the command prompt?
No. You can run from here also, no problem. Directly in the terminal, type that.
Okay. Let me type here.
Capitalization doesn't matter, right?
Sorry, sir.
No, it's not installed. Some error is there. You are keeping everything on desktop. Desktop, you have problems
Yes,
with your command prompt. The desktop permissions will not be there. You do one thing, you go to direct command prompt, run command, some
okay,
direct C drive, switch to command prompt.
from here also we can go to the this file 4964111 ID, sir. From there we can install it, right?
Just press CD backslash. CD backslash. Now you run.
But we don't have permissions to run from this C drive, sir. This is organization laptop, so I'll go to this 4964111 ID.
Okay then. Okay. CD users. Okay, now you can try. Change to that folder. CD desktop.
Yes.
Now you already installed it. Enough CD desktop. CD SAS, that is the folder. Here, run that command. You can see the file is created there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, tomorrow I will let you know, because we will wait, check with those people. If they are available, tomorrow we will start Angular. Otherwise, I will continue with our jQuery, then we will go to Angular. Okay, right.